Yo, what is up? Welcome back. Thanks so much for making it this far. So you're here to learn how to wheelie? Awesome, you came to the right place. So here's the thing with wheelies. Wheelies might not be the most practical skill to learn, simply because there's not a lot of opportunity to do a wheelie on a trail and actually make it useful. However, wheelies are fun. Nobody can argue that wheelies are not fun. The crazy thing about wheelies is I've ridden with some intermediate riders and some advanced riders, and they are honest and they say, I can't wheelie. I just never learned how to wheelie well. And it blows my mind because as a kid, I think wheeling was the equivalent to a kickflip in skateboarding, right? So when you talk about practicality and skills to learn, the bunny hop would be the ollie, right? Because you can ollie over curbs, you can ollie up onto stuff. Similar with a bunny hop, you can bunny hop over logs, you can bunny hop up onto things. After the bunny hop, the next skill that I think most riders should learn would be the wheelie. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to many because the wheelie is not something that you would use on a trail. But the wheelie is fun to learn, and it builds a balance and a confidence that sets the stage for a lot of the other tricks that you're going to learn, right? I've talked about this before where intermediate riders and beginner riders are in a box and they're hesitant to get outside of that box. Well, wheeling, in addition to bunny hopping and manualing, is this skill that you can do anywhere, encourages you to break out of that box. So I think I've established that wheelies are fun. I don't think anybody's gonna argue that. I think any kid that sees you do a wheelie will automatically give you aura points for days. But the other thing is, for me specifically, while I rarely ever wheelie on a trail, I wheelie on every single ride. The reason being is I ride at odd hours of the day. I'm up early, I ride early in the morning. You know, I'll drive 2 hours, get out of the car at 7 o'clock, and it's hard for my body to get the clue of what it's there to do because it just wants to sit and drink coffee and watch videos. However, the very first thing I do when I get on my bike is I crank a wheelie. I talk a lot about being smarter than your brain, right? Being smarter than your brain, you need to tell your brain, we're here to do a job. We're here to ride our bike. We're here to control our bike. And we are going to rely on you, body, and your skills of balance and that fine muscle motion that you know so well. We need you to get activated right now because we are riding. The wheelie, when I do a wheelie, it tells my brain that we're there to do just that. It's the cue for my body that it's there to work. Wheeling is an all-age skill because it doesn't rely on strength. It doesn't rely on a ton of mobility. It just relies on cracking the code once. And once you crack that code, you will have it for life, I promise you. So I'll talk about the fundamentals. I will talk about the good habits. And I will also talk about the bad habits that if you are struggling to learn how to wheelie or hold your wheelies for any distance, these bad habits might be what's holding you back. So let's get into it. Let's talk about safety first, okay? Safety in wheelies is just a matter of not looping out because it's very unlikely you're gonna fall over on your side doing a wheelie. If you feel that, the natural inclination is to put your foot out and catch yourself. However, when you loop out backwards, you might fall like a turtle on its back. So we wanna avoid that. And the best way to avoid that is to ensure that you are always covering your rear brake. Your rear brake will save you from looping backwards. Just a slight drag of the rear brake and it's gonna bring your front end down in no time. So for safety, you can certainly go out into the grass and learn how to wheelie. You can also practice bailing out off the back of the bike, which just means jumping off without letting go of your handlebars and running behind your bike and then coming to a stop. That skill, practicing that skill before wheeling, scares a lot of people, and I think it ultimately scares them out of trying to do the wheelie. So my suggestion is this: while it's always great to have a plan B, knowing how to bail out is always great regardless of what skill you're doing. But we want to control the wheelie before we get to the bailout point. So for that reason, you really want to focus on using your rear brake, specifically not going beyond your balance point. So now that we got some of the preliminary stuff out of the way, you're probably wondering where we start to wheelie. Well, we're going to start right here. I do want to mention this super quick. If you are here because your intention is to wheelie into oncoming traffic and swerve at the last minute, or wheelie through crowds of pedestrians, you came to the wrong video because you and I, we have drastic differences on what cool is. So now let's talk about where we start. So I think one of the most important aspects on being able to wheelie well is knowing the proper seat height. So a lot of people will think that wheeling with the seat all the way up, if you have a dropper post, all the way up is best because that'll get your body up and high and back. And then other people will argue that all the way down is best because it keeps your center of gravity closer to the center of gravity of the bike, and therefore your bike is easier to control. Both are wrong. The best place to start with a wheelie is put your seat all the way up and then drop it down to about the halfway point, or at least an inch or two. I have found that just bringing your seat down a few inches to the midpoint or just above the midpoint will make wheeling so much easier. Now, one thing I want to mention about my e-bike here is I'm going to wheelie with the power completely turned off. So it's going to be all of Josh's muscle to do this wheelie. The reason being is I think the consensus is a heavier bike would be harder to wheelie. I got a lot of questions in my how-to manual video, whether or not the manualing process is the same on a heavy e-bike. It is. The only difference is your effort has to be a little bit more aggressive. The next thing you want to think about after your seat post, of course, is how to posture your upper body to initiate the wheelie. The upper body pop is simply go down slightly and boost back with as much aggression as you possibly can. If you need to pop a little bit off the front end, that certainly helps. So I would suggest you start there. No pedaling at this point, just see how high you can get that front end up, just doing that. Okay, so we're gonna go down and up. Front wheel comes up a little bit. We ride it for about a foot, which is kind of cool. Again, we're still seated. We're not standing up on the bike. And we're driving our shoulder blades back. So down and pop up. Just enough to get that front end off the ground. If you are able to do this and get that front end off the ground, you are gonna be ready to move on to the next step. You can do this with front suspension. You can do it with a rigid front end as well. So one quick thing to mention is when you are doing this, notice how my arms stay straight out at the end of the motion. You don't want to try to pull the front end up with your arms, because what that's going to inevitably do is it's going to bring your body, your core forward, and that brings you in front of the balancing point. So your wheelie is going to be tremendously hard if your body and your center of gravity and your body mass is in front of that balancing point. So when you push back, keep your arms straight and stretch back with your shoulder blades. All right, so now that you've got the popping aspect of the upper body out of the way, you feel strong, you feel controlled, you feel fluid with it. The next step that you need to know is that we need to apply power to it. So the power to get that wheelie up and get our body into that center balancing point comes from our legs. So that power stroke comes from the lower body, and that is going to really allow us to get into that wheelie and balancing point that we need to achieve to wheelie. So the first thing you need to identify, I can't identify this for you, is you need to know which leg is your power leg. Your power leg is going to be the leg that you naturally ride forward. It could be your right leg, it could be your left leg. I think that's all the options that we have. So determine which one is right for you, and we're going to call that our power leg, okay? The next thing is we need to determine the momentum leg, okay? The momentum leg is the opposite leg of your power leg. What does that all mean? Let's talk about it. So before we initiate the power stroke, which is out of our power leg, we need to initiate the momentum stroke, and that is out of our non-power leg. So before we worry about pedaling into our wheelie, we want to know that our momentum leg needs to be the first leg in the process. So we want to bring that leg forward. So with our non-dominant leg forward, that puts it at about the 9 o'clock position on a clock, right? What we're going to do is we're going to step down into our non-dominant foot, and that provides the momentum that we need, and it's going to bring our dominant leg up to the 12 o'clock position. And that is where the power starts, okay? So momentum, power. Non-dominant, momentum, dominant, power. So if you've noticed, my momentum stroke brings my upper body down, and it's my power stroke is initiated when I'm at my lowest point in my pop. So I combine that upper body pop that I've learned with my power stroke. Momentum stroke, power stroke. Momentum, power. Momentum, power. So you don't have to keep pedaling, you really just want to practice getting that front end up quick and in control. Again, this is a great opportunity to do it slow so that you can really cover your rear brake with your finger. And if you feel like you're going to loop out, you can brake and bring it back down. Momentum, power. And if you practice that a little bit, you'll realize that it's easy to control getting that front end up in the air. The success of your wheelie really will be dependent on how efficiently you get that front end up and how you get it up into the balance point in a quick and controlled manner. That way you're not fighting for balance the entirety of the wheelie. It kind of comes up clean and in control, and you are set from the get-go. So as you do this, also you want to experiment with different gearing. Every bike's different, so I can't tell you exactly what gear to be in, but I would say a safe bet is somewhere in the middle of your gear range. And it really depends on the slope you're on. It depends on if you're in the grass or not. If you're pushing through your pedals too quick and nothing's coming up, you need to understand that you might be in the wrong gear, so go for a little heavier of a gear. It's better to start off in a heavier gear than it is in a lighter gear. A heavier gear can still give you success if you pedal harder into it. A lighter gear, you have no way to pedal harder into it to bring that front end up. So you've combined your momentum stroke with your power stroke and your upper body pop, and you are able to consistently and in control get your front wheel up for a small amount of time, and it's starting to feel fluid and smooth for you. Now you're ready to take that wheelie for a distance. Well, if flat ground is all you have, that's perfect, you can stay there. Learning how to hold your front end up is a lot easier if you're slightly climbing uphill. The reason being is it helps keep your body back into the balancing position. In addition, the last thing we want to do is keep our wheelie up by increasing our pedal speed. So if you find as you're trying to keep that front end in the air that you are pedaling and increasing your speed and racing into your wheelie to keep the front end up, you are doing it totally wrong. The first thing you need to do is drop that front end down and start over, because we want to keep our wheelie in the air with our balancing point, and we want to hit that balancing point. We don't want to race into our wheelie, because inevitably what's going to happen is you're going to run out of speed and you're going to run out of any ability to keep the front end up, which is going to limit the distance of your wheelie. So our goal now is to pedal with our balancing point, not pedal for it. So we're going to keep our speed under control. We're going to get the front end up, and we're just going to try to find that balancing point, okay? Just find that balancing point and let it drop down. You don't want to increase your speed. We're just keeping our speed consistent, not super fast, not super slow, okay? As we go up, we're trying to physically feel that balancing point. We're trying to feel it with our mind and with our body. And as you do this, what you're doing is you're limiting the possibility of looping out, but you're training your body where that balancing point is and to know what it feels like. So as you do this over and over, you're going to realize that that balancing point becomes pretty obvious. Once it becomes obvious to you, you need to know how to stay there. Okay? This part here could be the lengthiest part of the process, is finding that balancing point. So again, remember, I'll have failures and I'll have successes, but every failure and every success is training my body on where that balance point is and how to get there quickly and efficiently. And then be real loose and relaxed with your upper body. The more relaxed you are with your shoulders and your arms, the less that input from those muscles are going to have on pulling you out of your balancing point. We're going slow, we're just finding that balancing point. We're really not trying to speed up any. We don't want to speed up, we just want to hit that balancing point and train our body where that balancing point is. If I feel like I have to pedal faster to keep my wheelie up, I'm going to bring it down right away, because I don't want to use speed to keep my wheelie in the air. So if I feel like I'm going beyond my balancing point, I might bring my shoulders forward a little bit. I might stop pedaling. I might tap my brake. It's all these things combined that you want to think about to control your wheelie. So now I have to assume that you found how to reach that balancing point, you know what it feels like, and you're not relying on speed to keep with it. So the only way to know what to do right is to know what doing wrong feels like. So I want to encourage you to explore what turning the bars does for your wheelie. And to do that, all you do is just bring your elbow into your side. When we keep our elbows in, it helps keep our center of gravity a little bit tighter. So here's what turning my handlebars does. It almost turns my bike too a little bit. Pretty cool, huh? The reason why turning my bars has such a huge impact on my balance is because my front wheel is a gyroscope. As long as my front wheel's spinning, it's going to give me some front end stability. So I got a little bit of wind, so I'm adjusting for the wind. So I don't rely on my knees too much to hold my side-to-side balancing point. As I'm experimenting here, I'm realizing that I really rely on that gyroscope that I have up front. And to control the gyroscope, I simply do subtle steering of the bars. And that steering really is initiated by just pulling my elbow into my side. And we can go extreme if we need to be up top with really turning those bars, and that's going to have tremendous impact on overcoming significant imbalances, whereas our knees can only go so far. Our knees only weigh so much, our knees can only do so much. So I'm pulling my elbow in, I'm pulling my elbow in. What that does is it keeps my adjustments kind of centralized on my body mass. So see, I'm really steering to the right here because I have a heavy wind coming from the right. Don't know if you can hear it. So one other bad habit is if you are looking down through your frame while you wheelie, just to kind of get a grasp on what you're doing. If you're looking at your front wheel, you focus too much on the foreground. So when you look off in the distance and focus on anything in the distance, say 30 feet and further out, it's going to help your equilibrium better find that balancing point. So I'm looking off in the distance, I'm not looking down. So as I wheelie, I'm really trying to internalize the feeling of that balancing point. I'm really trying to really focus on what that feels like in my hips and in my upper body. When I can associate that feeling and really learn it and understand it, it's going to make it so much easier to stay in that feeling versus just recognizing, okay, I'm balancing, how do I keep it? We need to make that balancing point a real thing, a real tangible thing in our mind. And to do that, we just need to focus on what it feels like. Just like any skill, you get out of it what you put into it. If you put patience into wheeling, you will learn how to wheelie. But I promise you, if you practice a little bit over a long period of time, you will learn how to wheelie. Or if you practice a lot over a short period of time, you will learn how to wheelie. The beauty with wheelies is that once you learn them, you kind of always have them. They're always there. And having a super cool skill like that that's always there, I think is worth the time and the effort to put into doing them. And let's be honest, you're working muscles and you're working your brain in ways that are absolutely going to benefit on the bike and every other skill applied on the trail. So get out there. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'm always happy to help. If you found this helpful and you're trying to learn other skills, I have a slew of other videos that a lot of folks have found helpful. It means a lot to me if you find them helpful. That's the whole purpose of this. If you do, give it a like, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it. And get your wheelie on because it's really easy.